Hi everyone, Christian from Production Journal here, and yeah, I got invited to this director's project collab a while back from Bailey from Loverboy Media, but got really busy with my Telltale Batman video and life just got in the way. But here I am. So thank you for the patience and the invite. It's really cool to be part of something bigger than just my own channel, and this is an opportunity to engage with a load of other really extremely talented and insightful people. If you want to see more of this month's amazing entries, follow the link to the playlist in the description below. So this month's theme was Christopher Nolan, and old mate Nolan and I go way back. He is probably my favorite director, and other than my love for his Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Interstellar, and Tenet, my favorite film from him doesn't get nearly enough attention in this community, and that is The Prestige. Now, before I go any further, I'd just like you to know that today's script is loosely adapted from a paper I wrote for university in which I discussed Nolan's filmmaking aesthetics in relation to the themes of his films, and I still believe that it's a really engaging discussion to be had, though it is a little tricky to follow, so bear with me. The Prestige tackles the philosophical battle between greed and envy, both of which are not only part of the 7 deadly sins, but intrigue me for their inclination with jealousy, which is entirely the theme behind this film, and I say this because I believe that the two main characters, Alfred Borden and Robert Angier, are manifestations of the ugly fallout of insatiable greed and consuming envy. The plot of the film follows these two once proud, talented magicians as they devolve into violent, vengeful, and insanely jealous enemies locked in a futile cycle of competition. They cheat, they play dirty, they sabotage, they lie, they both go to insane lengths to compete with one another until inevitably they destroy each other, and I find it poetic. So today I'm going to be tackling this from not only the perspective of analysing the film and its narrative themes, but Nolan's approach to filmmaking as well, because I think that the way in which his own philosophy informs his unique filmmaking also lends itself to another layer of depth within the message of the film. The Prestige is as much about the illusion behind the trick as it is about the all-familiar tale of self-destruction through a spectacular battle between greed and envy. These themes resonate with our main characters, Robert Angier and Alfred Borden, so I'm going to be taking the road less travelled by not discussing the nature of the characters and themes within the film, but instead the nature of the filmmaking itself. See, Nolan is one of my favourite filmmakers of all time, and the thing that always astounds me is the message that the craft behind his film has to accompany the message he tells through his story. And in the case of The Prestige, I very much think it could be interpreted as a meta-commentary of the disillusion between authenticity and the digital within filmmaking. Through his story alone, the case can be made that the smoke and mirrors of theatrical practicality, in the case of Alfred Borden through his use of makeup and committing to character, can be just as deceiving and exceptional as the manufactured science of fantastical effects pursued by Robert Angier. I say this because I believe that, to an extent, it mirrors Nolan's own argument of aesthetics between authenticity and digital. What I've come to appreciate about Nolan is that he is a very hands-on filmmaker, in that he will opt for the use of practical stunts and real big-budget spectacles and instead use CGI sparingly to cover up what otherwise couldn't be achieved by his own team. Now, this isn't a direct call-out of the overuse of CGI, but instead a favour toward the perfect imperfections that only a human behind a camera could achieve, something that the perfect manufactured nature of a digital effect simply couldn't replicate. He sees the beauty in that imperfection, and I believe it parallels an interpretation of the message throughout the film. That message being the nonsensical, cyclical nature of greed, envy, spite, obsession, and hatred. So how does Nolan's filmmaking reflect the message of his film? Nolan uses his characters in The Prestige to convey themes of obsession as a comparison to exploring his statement of the human element behind the magic of entertainment. His own agenda to favour authenticity over digital is challenged by the notion of achieving the impossible. Much like himself, his characters dwell the impossibility of what both ends of authenticity and digital can offer in entertainment. Borden's wife in the film notices that from day to day. This deception, unbeknownst to her, is noticed on an emotional level when she says, "You don't love me today." Angier's duplications inherit his flaws, psyche, emotions, and obsessions, thus creating a dramatic sense of perfection to him, because this sense of perfection exists only within the spectacle of his trick, rather than the man behind it who is very much imperfect. Though, it's the human aspects of Borden's deceit that really captures Nolan's attention, because although the character is, in essence, hiding his secret in plain sight, it's the imperfections between the Borden brothers that is truly captivating. Through their shared life, only one loves their wife quite like the other. Only one of them knows what knot was tied that killed Angier's wife. Nolan values the imperfection of humanity and sees a beauty in it. The very concept of perfection is an ambiguous and futile pursuit. Nolan admires the flawed human element of choice and the certain uncertainties that can only be achieved through imperfect human hands. When turning to digital, he even opts to imitate the flawed nature of practicality to capture its human essence and turn it into a thing of beauty for the audience. As well as doing all of this, there's one indisputable thing that is always great in Nolan's films, and that is the pacing and his careful attention to narrative structure and time. He's renowned for using time as a plot element in his films, and this is no exception. The Prestige doesn't follow a linear path. It tends to leap around and tell the story in parts so that your mind is actively piecing it together like a mystery. The film demands your complete attention to catch every detail and reward you for your efforts with satisfying narrative payoffs. Therefore, the relationship between the film and the audience is symbiotic in the way that if the audience offers their intrigue, the film will in turn offer them a philosophical perspective on the debate between greed and envy. At least, that's what the film does for me. Nolan constructs his works in such a way that makes his audience feel smart and as though they're actively contributing to uncovering the mystery behind his artwork. He constructs the narratives behind all of his works to often follow several different stories at once, for them all to come together coherently and end at the conclusion of the film full circle. An exception here being Tenet, and I'm debating whether I'll cover that sometime soon, so let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd like to see. All of this is done with the very unique purpose of translating his own screenplay directly into the magic trick formula that dictates each character's performance. We start the film with the pledge that we'll see something extraordinary, and we're given glimpses into what's to come with mild ambiguity. The relationship between Angia and Borden is spoken remorsefully in a past tense to suggest a fallout between our two protagonists, planting that seed in the audience's mind. In fact, we are introduced to the characters at the end of their journey, where Borden is on trial for the murder of Angia. Later, as the film builds toward the midpoint of the story, we are shown that this new trick Borden has invented has changed everything. Meanwhile, we see into a future where Tesla's machine is being developed and tested. However, Nolan purposefully cuts away before we get the chance to see anything, so that all we're left with are reaction shots. Therefore, the trick is disappearing right before our eyes, not unlike the second step in the magic formula, the turn. And of course, the film ends with the big reveal of Borden's twin and the conclusion of him and Angia's long, spiteful story, thus bringing us to the Prestige. This is exceptional and creatively layered storytelling and gives the reason for the non-linear series of events a real thematic purpose. Nolan's knowledge and consequent use of pacing, timing, and story structure in his filmmaking effectively allows immediacy to govern the audience's perception. By both making us question everything and giving us the answers for questions that remain to be asked, Nolan positions the audience to theorize and speculate, thus contributing to unraveling the mystery behind his story. And the magic behind it all is that if you pay close enough attention, Nolan drops hints the entire time. As the audience, we perceive the behaviors of the characters and try to understand them. I feel like there's a lot of tension in the subtext of this movie because what's equally, if not more interesting to me, isn't entirely what happens on screen, but what is left to our imagination. The fantastical nature of the plot and its conflicting sense of being grounded in realism has always fascinated me with this film. Yet the aspect that keeps me coming back is its deceptive character study and deconstruction of human nature within the themes and characters of the film. What I love about this film is how it uses the hopeful wonder of theatrical smoke and mirrors to instead take a deep dive into the toxic fallout of an obsessive rivalry. The very nature of our main characters' professions as magicians cast their aspirations for wondrous grandeur, the consequent deception, value, and worth of their own performances. We can see their once hopeful working partnership as magicians devolve into a maddening hysteria of envious, spiteful insanity and jealousy. They become shells of their former selves. A key theme explored throughout the story is the envious price for living an illusion, and the consequent greed relating to the worth of a secret. Very early on, we see Borden point out the ingenuity of living an illusion, the consistent performance to maintain the integrity of a secret, and later we see how that's reflective of his own double life between himself and his own twin. But of course, as Angia grows more and more envious of Borden's career, he begins to doubt the painstakingly obvious secret behind his former colleague's new astonishing trick. Despite being told all throughout the film that Borden uses a double, he just can't accept it. It's too easy. Instead, Angia hoists him up on this pedestal when in actuality Borden is just as desperate as he is. We see the greed manifest in Angia as Borden's new breathtaking trick, the Transported Man, is revealed to the world. As Angia attempts to imitate it, Borden sees an opportunity to sabotage his performance by both making his double aware of his power and making Angia spiteful of having to finish his performance as the man under the stage, rather than the Prestige, who would hail all the praise. It feeds into the theme of value and worth and Angia's own obsession with conquering Borden. Later, Angia would find a way to be both the turn and the Prestige, thus eliminating the threat of using a double. However, within the creation of Tesla's machine comes a cost of which he is warned, yet willingly welcomes. The machine is the manifestation of that lust for greed. The sense of spite and self-destruction is imbued in the very creation of Tesla's machine. The ambitious envy that would become Tesla's downfall would then parallel Angier's own at the hands of his own all-consuming obsession. And that is why I find this film continually fascinating. It adheres to its own established laws of a magic trick within its own narrative structure, while delivering a compelling commentary on everything toxic within the human condition under the guise of just another movie. Perhaps that is the real deception that this film has to offer.